guys, and I am back with another layout from my February 2015 Super Sketch Club kit from Scrapbook Generation. A link to their website will be below the video. And for the first portion of the video where I'm just kind of checking the instructions and cutting my paper, I do have a little helper and her ball. She decided to get up early from her nap, and she's in this sort of phase where whatever I'm doing, she wants to be there in my lap and doing it. So I went ahead and just kind of let her hang out with me while I was cutting the papers and stuff, mostly just because she was being pretty good about, not touching my things and was just kind of really trying to get me to cut her ball in half. But so again, I've got the instructions and the sketch off to the side, and this part of the kit they used to break down the other parts of the kit. There was the three layouts that were the super savers, and then they used to call them sketch day 1 and sketch day 2, and they would provide two sketches and you could pick between the two or you could double up on your papers. They've since just changed the name of this part of the kit, and they're now calling it Part 2 and Part 3. So if you have the February 2015 Super Sketch Club kit and you're working along with me, I am currently working on Part 3. And I don't remember the name of the line, but the papers were from Jelly Bean Soup, and it was all pattern paper, and then I think it's a cream or a vanilla cardstock, but all the sort of embellishments and extra little bits and pieces are just fussy cut from the papers. So just kind of another maybe idea as far as looking at your papers differently. So I've gone ahead and I've cut all my papers down, and I've inked the edges of the larger pieces in a brown distress ink. I want to say it's walnut stain. And I'm just going to go ahead and attach the large background piece here and the thin orange strips that I had cut earlier. And for whatever reason, I was having a difficult time lining up this big piece for whatever reason. And you can see that I have a gap on the top of my page, and this happens a lot. For whatever reason, I noticed that the pattern, it's either the pattern papers or the cardstocks are not the same quote-unquote 12 by 12. So in a minute here, I'll show you how I sort of fix that issue. I just trim my entire layout down, and it doesn't bother me that it's a little bit smaller, especially once it's in the sheet protectors in my albums, and I use D-ring albums, so my pages don't necessarily meet up in the middle anyways, but I don't really mind if I have to trim off, a little bit of the top or a little bit of the side. And I don't like the gap in the paper, so I choose to trim it down. And then I've noticed that it's also a little bit easier to slide into my sheet protectors, especially if like this page or the one that it's going to be back to back with has maybe bulkier embellishments. And so here, like I said, I'm just trimming down the entire thing so that my papers are now, flush to the edge. And then I just went ahead and re-inked that edge of the pattern paper. And then here I am just using the sample layout that I had printed to kind of figure out photo placement and just kind of making sure that I had everything. All my photos were pulled, they were all from the same event, and just going through and cutting apart the ones that I had edited in Photoshop and dropped them on 4x6 canvases. So I just going ahead and cutting these little 2x2s apart, and I want to say that this sketch option was done by Allison. Like Part 2 and Part 3 of the kit, Allison always does a sketch and Debbie does a sketch, and if you only get the basic kit, you pick between the two sketches of what works for you. And for the longest time I was gravitating towards Debbie's sketch almost every single month, and lately I've noticed the last couple that I've done I've gravitated towards Allison's sketch. So that was kind of interesting, because typically I will shy away from these little 2x2 photos, but I kind of like them for situations like this where I don't have maybe the best photos, but I have a lot of photos that I do want to include, and so it's kind of nice to just crop them down to a 2x2 in like Photoshop or any kind of photo editing software, and you kind of don't notice that it's not the greatest photo, and I don't really feel like I'm not including a photo that I wanted to include. And so these little sort of social icons were actually a 3x4 cut apart card from one of the papers, and the instructions just said that you needed to cut apart the different icons, and then I just grabbed some foam tape to pop behind them, and again I'm just using that sample photo to kind of get placement for all these different little pieces. And then this little 3x4 card from the same paper had this kind of status update checklist, and they had us cutting out the different words and turning them into these little banner label pieces, and I kind of thought that that was pretty clever. I don't think I would have looked at that 3x4 card maybe in my own stash and thought to use it that way. So I always kind of like when I'm putting these kits together and I run across one of these situations, and it kind of reminds me to look at papers that I already have kind of in a different way. If I have either a pre-cut 3x4 card that maybe has a checklist, or like this one, they had us cutting out this little camera icon, just kind of in the back of my mind as I'm looking at papers in my stash, I notice that I'm kind of looking at them and thinking of different ways to use them instead of just maybe as they were included on the paper. So I'm just adding these little cut aparts to the side of the paper, and then I'm going to move over to the left page and start putting down my photos. And these photos were just from a play date at the park right down by our house. So not like a special event or anything. So when I saw the jelly bean soup papers in the kit, I just kind of gravitated more towards like everyday type pictures. And then I did like the fact that it kind of had that maybe Facebook or Instagram type feeling with all the little hashtag phrases and the different social icons, because the way that we sort of structure our playgroup is through Facebook. So there's a lot of chatting back and forth on Facebook and different stuff like that. So it just kind of made me think of our playgroup when I saw this paper in the kit. And then I had forgotten to cut one of my 3x4 photos apart, so I just went back into my photos and grabbed that one. And then after I put down that column of pictures and cards, I went ahead and put my last orange strip down, and I like to just slightly overlap so that anything that's not lined up straight or maybe not cut perfectly straight, you can kind of hide it with the strip of paper. And then these are some more of those phrases from the 3x4 card from earlier, and a couple more of those little square icons. And then you can see the little blank spot in the photo collage. I have not attached that 3x4 card yet because I will usually save my journaling for last. I like to run it through my computer and just type up my journaling. I'm not somebody that's ever really going to decide that I like my handwriting, so I'm okay with, doing printed journaling. It's what I like, it's my album, so I'm happy with that. It's, it's an extra step and it takes a couple extra minutes, but I feel like it finishes the layout. And so there you can see that I just ran that 3x4 card through my printer with the journaling on it, and then here I'm just adding some enamel dots from my stash, just an extra little something to add to the kit. And that was it as far as anything anything extra that I added to the kit. I didn't do any stamping, and I didn't add any sort of extra like stickers or embellishments. I just kind of went with enamel dots to kind of play off of the circles in the pattern paper. So I have included a photo of the finished layout just so you can see it. And again, I will post a link to scrapbookgeneration.com below the video in case you want to check out any of their kits or their subscriptions or their awesome sketches. So thanks for watching.